Right. Hello, everybody. So good to see you all. Let me change my view here and just take a look at everybody. It's good to have some regulars here. I have a really great teaching for you. It's not too repetitive. It's not something I've really taught so much in the past. So I'm trying this out today and I'll be happy to hear your feedback. And I think I'm going to be teaching more of this in the future because it's really, I get a lot of questions about this topic, and the topic is emotions. There seems to be a little bit of confusion sometimes when it comes to emotions. What are they? How do you tell thinking versus emotions versus feelings? How do they arise? And once they have arisen, what should I do with those? How do I handle them? So I just want to make really crystal clear that we are all on the same page though. So I want to just hear from you all. I want to know, what do you consider negative emotions? You can just unmute and just say any that you can think of. I'm just going to write them all down. Anger, yes. And all its flavors, such as rage and what else? Sadness. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Concerns.
Concerns, like anxiety, like
Worries and concerns. Yeah.
Worries. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fear.
Fear. Yep. There's all kinds of fears. Yep. Yeah, we have jealousy and God. What other full-blown emotions can you think of? Grief, maybe.
Any emotion that just feels bad, like
Somebody's talking, but I can't hear you very well. Deneen?
It's Deneen. Yeah, sorry. Just any emotion that feels bad, any emotion that just kind of just feels like it's weighing you down and dragging you down.
Yeah. So,
like,
yeah. So, like, do you have a favorite one?
I wouldn't call it a favorite. Maybe, hopelessness.
Yeah, good one. Good. Yeah. Shame. Oh, yeah, good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Regret.
Yep. Okay, I think you all have a really good handle on what we're talking about. Now, if I were to ask you, where in your body do you fill in the blank? Do you feel hopelessness or shame or regret? Are all of you pretty well clear that you could find a place in your body where you're feeling that? Yes, no, maybe? Sometimes? Yeah, so for instance, anger is a really easy one. A lot of us, when we get angry, we feel hot, or you feel like you're blushing and you get red, or you might feel there are so many different reactions. Some people get just a lot of energy in their body, or grief. You might feel it as like a empty pit in your stomach, or like a soreness around your heart, something like that. So yeah, emotions are, I think, synonymous with the word feelings, although feelings can be bigger. Like you could have a feeling in your arm, like you can say, I don't have any feeling in this arm, or whatever. But for the most part, when we talk about feelings and emotions, we're talking about the same thing. Now, here's the thing about emotions in our culture. And that is that avoiding them at all costs is a very big deal. It's a huge business. It's a big industry. It's a cultural touchstone. It's the subject matter of advertisers. Feeling the good emotions and not feeling the negative emotions, right? And from a very young age, many of us were taught to bury our feelings, to stuff them down, to not feel them. How about things like big boys don't cry, or pull up your big girl panties? It's time to do that, right? Or have you ever seen a child fall down and they look at their mom, they start to cry, and they say, "You're okay," right? It's like, no, you're not feeling that emotion you think you're feeling. Or how about this one? You'd better stop crying, otherwise I'll give you something to cry about. Yeah. It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? It seems very, very silly. But these messages begin to, even how about a newborn saying, shush, shh, 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 right? Quiet down, quiet down. Now, remember, we came to this world, at least most of us, I'm pretty sure most of us in this room here, not knowing how to communicate other than screaming our heads off. That's pretty much all we had. We had not screaming or screaming. And so to be told not to do that, it actually damages our ability to communicate. Not just that, to feel some things ourselves. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at culturally with emotions, right? And it's not, 100% ubiquitous everywhere. It's just a lot, many, many people that I've talked to have experienced emotions like this. Okay, now imagine a world where children are allowed to express their emotions, but they're not indulged. They're not told to stuff everything down. And what's modeled for them is how to gradually learn to feel your emotions and then to learn how to control them, as is age appropriate. And it's little by little, and it's done gently. Imagine that. If we lived in that kind of a world, our culture would be so different. It would be very different from the one we're currently living in, where emotions, you just look in the news, emotions are very high. People are triggered very easily right now. I have seen more emotional outbursts just in my regular everyday life in the last couple of years than I have probably in all the time before that. So there's a reason for this. There has been a lot of repression of what we feel, and it's suddenly coming out. You can only put something under pressure for so long before it has to release. So now let's look at the Buddhist definition of emotions. In our lineage, the definition of emotions or feelings is strong thinking. Strong thinking. So strong negative thinking, when it's repeated, becomes negative emotions. Negative thinking, when it's repeated, becomes strong negative thinking and eventually leads to emotions or negative emotions. Now, unfortunately, this is a perfect definition. It's a great definition, but unless we unpack it, look into it, and do a little research with it, it can lead to some very funny outcomes. And so I'm going to give you some commentary today on emotions so that you can work with it within your practice. And because unfortunately, what happens if you don't know how to handle emotions from a Buddhist perspective and you take them onto your meditation cushion, that can lead to trying to remove them, reject them, repress them. We don't know how to handle them. So now this is very basic. It's not anything, this is not, what does Lama Eric say? This is not rocket surgery. So this is not, this is not difficult stuff to maneuver. We just have to know how to do it. So, all we do is we go back to the Four Noble Truths. The root of suffering, according to the Four Noble Truths, is the 5 negative thinkings, right? We know that from the very first Noble Truth, that is all of my suffering is the result of my negative thinking and negative karma as cause. So we know that negative thinkings cause our suffering. And we know that negative emotions have that feeling of suffering for us. That is, we experience when we are experiencing negative emotions, we're suffering and the people around us are usually suffering when those things are expressed. Now, the confusing part, so we have our 5 negative thinkings and then we have the 3 poisons. So let's tackle that part first, because it can be very confusing when we get all the terminology out there. The 5 negative thinkings, anger, jealousy, greed, pride, and ignorance, can be compacted down into just 3, the 3 poisons. And we call them poisons for a reason, because these 3 poisons, anger, greed, and ignorance, are what destroy our happiness. They literally kill our happiness. They poison our life. Not only that, we know from the Four Noble Truths that negative thinking creates a lot of poisonous chemicals in our body. So negative thinking, negative emotions are literally, the three poisons are literally and figuratively poisoning us. All right, so they're destructive. So let's back up now and think about the qualities of present moment thinking. There are 2 qualities of present moment thinking, hope and fear. Every moment of present moment thinking, every moment of thinking has these 2 qualities, hope and fear. These are not good or bad. It's not like hope is good and fear is bad. These are just qualities of thinking. If you could strip down your thinking to the very most basic bare bones before any good or bad is assigned to it, you would have hope and fear. You would have moving toward what you want and moving away from what you don't want. You would have moving toward happiness and moving away from suffering. It's an energy or a movement. It's just a quality of thinking. The reason they become destructive is that they become addictive. They become habitual in a dysfunctional way. So it's not the hope or the fear itself. It's that we send them to the wrong target, and then we repeat that over and over again. So the hope and the fear are just moving toward or moving away. It's when we move them toward the wrong target or away from the wrong target, and then we clench to that and hold on to that and repeat that, that's when it becomes dysfunctional. So that's the part we want to look at. Why does that happen? Well, so let's first talk about the 5 negative thinkings and the 3 poisons. How do we get 5 into 3? That doesn't sound like a very easy math problem, but I can explain it to you. Anger and jealousy go together. So jealousy is just an spin-off of anger. So those go together. They both are misplacing fear. They're rejecting the wrong thing. What are we supposed to fear? I mean, supposed to, that's not the right terminology. The only fear that really makes sense is to fear our negative thinking. If we're fearing anything else, our neighbor's barking dog, our friend who gets to go to Hawaii every winter, so we're jealous. Anything else we're rejecting is targeting the wrong thing. We should be targeting our negative thinking. Okay, so anger and jealousy go together. Next, we have greed. Greed is just the negative form of desire. That's hope, right? Hope. Greed is just hope gone awry, moving toward the wrong target. What should we hope for? What should we desire? Our positive thinking. We should, we should always want Dharma. But unfortunately, we mistake the cause of our happiness. Positive thinking is the cause of our happiness. We mistake other things out there for our happiness. We put our hope on the wrong target. We think, that trip to Hawaii is a cause of our happiness, and a quiet neighborhood is the cause of our happiness. And, wonderful food and whatever it is we desire, we crave. The desire in itself isn't wrong. It's just a quality of our thinking. Every moment of thinking is going to want something. And we should be very proud of that, because that we can use that. Hope and fear, both we can use. All right, those are energies we can really harness. Okay, so that's greed. Greed is misplaced hope. And what happens with that misplaced hope, desire gone awry, is we repeat that and it becomes an addiction. And pretty soon we're not happy unless we have the phone in our face. We're not happy unless we eat, every 5 minutes until we've gained too much weight and we're sick. Okay, that's greed. The next so anger and greed, the first two of the poisons. The third poison, ignorance. And pride is what goes with ignorance. Because remember, pride has to do with ego clinging. It's forgetting who we are. I am single present moment thinking. Instead, I think I'm a self, I'm an ego, and I cling to that. That's ignorance. So it goes together with pride goes together with ignorance. Now, ignorance is dullness, apathy, and if you repeat that, it becomes depression eventually. So that's where the dullness can really, once it's repeated and becomes a dysfunction, a habit, it begins to take us down. So, and cold pride, you can see how cold pride, not feeling like you're good enough, is going to exacerbate that. So we have anger and jealousy. That's the first one. We just call it anger, the first poison. Greed, the second poison. The third poison is ignorance and pride. Ignorance. Okay, and now here's the really amazing, incredible thing about the 5 negative thinkings and 3 poisons. They transform. It says right in the Buddha path, I believe it's in the Tantra practice, anger becomes mirror-like wisdom. Does anybody know? I don't have my Buddha path right here with me. I don't remember what page it's on, but if somebody knows, they can put it in the chat. Anger becomes mirror-like wisdom. Pride becomes equanimity wisdom. Desire or greed becomes discerning wisdom. And jealousy becomes accomplishing wisdom. And finally, ignorance becomes dharma dhatu wisdom. So it becomes the all-encompassing wisdom of Buddha. All right, so these negatives are meant to transform. We are meant to transform. Remember, present moment thinking is so powerful. We can transform these poisons. How do we do that? That's the subject of today. Okay, now it's true. These negative thinkings are painful when we repeat them. Very, very painful. They will cause suffering. That is the only thing that causes suffering. And they will be a condition for other suffering. It's not just our own suffering, that because of interdependence, it includes everybody. And this is how it works. The negative thinking arises. And then what happens? We react. That's just an energy. It's just an energy that arises, but then we react to it. It's uncomfortable. We experience our negative thinking as uncomfortable. Why? Because it's not the cause of our happiness. It's not natural. It's unnatural. All negative thinking is unnatural. Remember, our nature is Buddha, 100% true happiness. And we know that because we always want happiness. We never want suffering, ever. We don't have to be taught, ever. We never forget it, not for a moment. So it's unnatural to have the opposite. Negative thinking is unnatural and uncomfortable. And so what do? We want to kill it. We want to destroy it. But we aim for the wrong target. We aim for the wrong target. And what we end up doing is we act out. Or we do some form of suppression. Okay, I feel the jealousy arising, and so I want to numb out or space out or distract myself. I'll just keep scrolling. I'm feeling jealous as I look at Facebook, but I'll just keep moving, just numb out. I'm not going to acknowledge that I'm having that feeling. Jealousy is a particularly bad one because it's so sneaky. Or I get angry at work and I just keep working. I'm like, I just let it go. Or I think I'm letting it go, but I just let it go underground. I distract myself. Okay. And then the other way, there's another way that we deal with negative thinking. We can tell a story about it and blame somebody. Okay. So if we have cold pride is a tendency and we get angry, we're going to tend to blame ourselves, or something happens and we get upset. We have a negative emotion. It's going to be inwardly pointed. We're going to blame ourselves. If we tend toward hot pride, we're going to blame it toward somebody else, right? So cold pride will feel helpless and hopeless. Hot pride will start blaming everybody and will be a victim. So neither of those responses is helpful in the moment or in the long run, and acting out isn't helpful. We all know people who have drama, right? They experience negative thinking and then everybody around them gets to experience it too because they have all this drama. Or then we have the type that just numb out, suppress it, go watch TV, they disappear. These are not functional ways of dealing with negative thinking. There is a wonderful way to describe the different styles of not dealing with your negative thinking. And that's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. This is found in this wonderful books by Pete Walker. He's a psychotherapist in California. He's really smart, Buddhist style psychotherapist. We can either run away, fight, right? Or fight. We can either put up our fists and say, challenge anybody who comes near us when we're having negative thinking. Those people tend to act out. We can fight, that's fight. Flight, we can run away, disappear, go undercover. We can some freeze and just like deer in the headlights, just kind of like don't move, don't react, don't do anything. And then there's fawn. Those kinds of people are just going to try to please others and try to make nice, try to make everything okay, they're going to try to engage and make it all go away and fix it. The problem is when we do these behaviors, rather than just sitting with what's going on for us, we create habits, and then the habits are based on dysfunctional reactions. And so over time, they become very painful. As well as the aftermath of practicing these habits and the toll it takes on our friends, our family, our coworkers, you get the picture. And then pretty soon we're in a full-blown challenge, life challenge. Any of this sound familiar? I know none of you have ever experienced this. Yeah. This is how it works. If you really just break down the steps, you can see over time, you can look back and you can wonder how you got where you are now, but it's just been little tiny steps. The boiling the frog scenario. You haven't noticed it. All right, so we all do these things. So right now, just take a moment to be very gentle with yourself and think, rather than going to this place of, oh my gosh, I've done all those things, I'm such a terrible person, just know that we've all done these things and we all have some negative habit of some kind that we have allowed to grow. But the important thing is to not feel bad about that ourselves or blame other people. It's just not helpful to say, well, it's all my parents' fault. Sure, they had something to do with it. Maybe they told you when you were a little boy, big boys don't cry. Maybe they said that, but that happened interdependently with your own thinking. So it's just not helpful to either blame ourselves or others. The thing to do is to learn how to work with our emotions. And we can learn right now, right here and now, today, how to work with our emotions in a way that we can heal all of these things. We can slowly, over time, unravel all of the dysfunctions that we have collected and just figure out a new path and be on the Buddha path at the same time. All right, so how do we do this? Or no, let's talk about why do we do this? Okay, we all do this, but why? There's only one reason. Anybody have a guess why we do this? Why we do these habits and these dysfunctions? And yeah, Carrie.
Is it because we're protecting our ego clinging? The real self, supposedly?
Well, we are definitely doing that. The question is, if we knew we were doing that, we wouldn't do it because even let's just take those of us in the room here. We know that ego clinging is a thing, and we know that it's not good for us. We know that it leads directly to suffering. So because we know that, doesn't mean we stop doing it. That's the problem. The main thing that we're lacking here is awareness. That's all we're lacking. We know we don't want to do it. We know what it is and why we don't want it. We know where it leads. We've read the Four Noble Truths again and again and again, and still here we are, ego clinging away. But we lack awareness of our actual thinking and emotions. That's where we're going wrong. We just don't know present moment thinking quite enough. We don't know ourselves enough. We don't understand how our own thinking works, how our own karma works. Basically, we don't know how the Four Noble Truths applies to my life right now, right here as I sit here. That's the connection that we're missing, and that's called awareness. So how do we bring this awareness? How do we bring the Four Noble Truths into our awareness? How do we move beyond understanding just the words and the meaning of the Four Noble Truths? How do we bring it into the truth of how we ourselves are working with our own negative thinking, our own negative habits, our own negative emotions as they arise? Well, I'm going to give you a process here. None of this is new. None of this is going to be earth-shattering new stuff here. It's all familiar. I'm bringing a new awareness to it because we tend not to want to work with our emotions. So we're going to apply things we already do to working with our emotions. Okay, so somehow the first step, we want to recognize the process of how our emotions are working in our lives. Now, remember, the longer we repeat something, the more energy it builds. So another way to say that is negative thinking creates negative karma, and negative karma projects our phenomena. You've heard this before. You know this. My negative thinking creates my negative karma. My negative karma projects my phenomena. Yeah, got it. What does that mean in my life? Okay, let's look at this. I might repeat a little anger. Anger at this level, I was trying to think of an example of an anger. Think of something that has happened in my life recently. Somebody says something and it just hits me the wrong way, let's say. Minor thing, they didn't even mean anything by it, but I have a little tinge of anger. And it's so small that I don't even notice it at the time. And it's in the back of my mind, and I'm repeating it. Now, that may create for me a bad mood for maybe an hour or two, or maybe the rest of the day. And by the next morning, maybe I wake up, I've forgotten all about it. Gone, it's done. Fine. Now, let's say, though, that I didn't forget about it, that it's built enough energy that I'm repeating it. And now I've repeated it enough that I can feel it. I notice it. I'm recognizing where I felt the anger and why. And I keep repeating it, and pretty soon, instead of just a bad mood, now I'm arguing with my spouse. It has nothing to do with the slight that I felt the other time, but I'm in a bad mood, so I get into an argument. And then that helps the thing spiral, and I keep repeating and the anger, and it's just little baby anger, but it keeps repeating. And pretty soon, if I do that enough, I'm going to be destroying maybe a whole evening, maybe a whole weekend, maybe our vacation. Might end up, if I keep repeating and I can't let it go, other things I'll attract other ways to feel angry, other situations, angry situations will start to attract, just like a magnet draws, metal. And pretty soon I've destroyed a friendship or a job. So you can see that really there's no end to the results of repeating a negative emotion like anger, including getting cancer in my body, or maybe even being part of a full-blown cultural political war in our country. So you can look at that. Each one of us has brought our own little petty angers to something that's bigger, and we're all resonating that together. The key here is that once we have acted on a negative emotion, it's too late to take it back. So let's take the example of, I've repeated it enough that I get into an argument with my husband and I yell at him. Once I've yelled, I've loosed that arrow. I can't get it back. It's not coming back. And that's just going to add to the negative side of our relationship. I have some good karma built up in my relationship with him and some negative karma built up. And I do that enough, and it's going to eventually destroy the relationship. So, once we have acted on a negative emotion, it's too late to take it back. And then all of a sudden we have two problems instead of one. We have the first one, and then we have the second one we created. And then you can see it just snowballs from there. Here's the key. At every stage, we can apply the antidote, but it becomes harder and harder to take it back once that little baby anger has become a full-blown, conflagration. So, okay. Now, I haven't told you anything you don't know. We're just looking at how it all works. Okay. This is where our meditation practice comes in. And here's why it's only through, I really recommend regular meditation practice. Why? Because it's only through a regular practice of sitting just for a few minutes without moving, just relaxing, just being natural, just observing. It's only through the regular practice that we begin to know ourselves. Now, remember, we are very complex beings. Present moment thinking is so powerful. It creates everything in our experience, including our bodies, our habits, our posture, our faces, facial expressions, and our, as we get older, where our wrinkles are, and our environment. And wow, it's so powerful. So let's say we sit down to meditate one morning, and we're just doing our usual thing. But this morning there's two really hard knotted feelings right here along my neck. Wow, oh, that hurts. Or let's say I'm just sitting and I feel this burning pit in my stomach. I notice that, right? I notice that, and I'm like, wow, I just noticed something. Okay, that's the first step. Something so simple. Now, I guarantee that pain on my neck is, my shoulders have gone up, or that pain in the pit of my stomach, something's wrong there. Something I ate, somebody said to me. I get to know my habits. I know, I know that feeling. That's the feeling I get when I go to bed angry at my husband. I recognize that feeling. when you sit every day at this, relatively the same time, same length of time, in the same place, you begin to know yourself very, very well. And it starts with your body. Remember, our emotions are embodied thinking. It's thinking that has been repeated enough that we can feel it in our body. That is an incredible miracle that we can thank karma for. Our karma created that. That energy created that feeling. So we just continue to sit and observe. We don't do anything about it. We're just watching, right? We're in meditation. We're just looking at it. We're not analyzing it. We're not trying to do anything. We're just sitting. The only agenda in our meditation practice is to sit still and just relax, notice, be. And then we get off our cushion and we realize what's going on. We have that awareness. We realize, I have a sore neck. My shoulders have been hunched up. I'm a little stressed out. And oh yeah, I remember I got triggered yesterday. My boss said this or that to me. And now instead of reacting with just a body thing, the next time that happens, either I can go in and I can correct the situation right then and there, or I can say, I'm going to let it go this time, but the next time it happens, I'll be prepared to speak up for myself. I'll make a mental note that, rather than get angry, when I feel my shoulders hunching up, I'll pull my shoulders back and I'll speak up for myself. Anger is completely averted. It's completely antidoted in that moment. Okay. My third point here about this meditation practice is we must feel it. Okay, that is the key. We are not trying to remove our feelings. We're not trying to avoid our feelings. We're not trying to destroy our feelings. We're trying to feel our feelings. This can be very uncomfortable when we're new practitioners, because all of a sudden we have all these feels that we didn't feel before. And we think, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. I'm a really scary person. I'm feeling all these negative emotions. And that's the time that you really want to have a teacher to help you be gentle with yourself. Noticing is great. It's wonderful. We should at that point, we want to congratulate ourselves for noticing the negative thinking that we're having, noticing the negative emotions that we're carrying, noticing the negative results in my body. If you are noticing any negative emotions when they arise, that is a good thing. Now, the next part is very important. We have to train ourselves to continue to feel them and not to run away. We have this line in the Buddha Path, may I never express or repress my negative thinking. You see, the main thing is to feel it, not repress it. And we don't say that explicitly in the Buddha Path. It is an implicit. And it takes practice to do it well. And this is where we want to begin the practice to be very kind to ourselves. We ask ourselves, can I feel that negative emotion? Can I really feel it without acting on it? Without distracting myself? Maybe I can't do that today, so I'll just be gentle with myself. I know I'm having a negative emotion. I'm going to have this glass of wine just in this moment because I know I can't handle it, and I'm going to say something I'm not meant to say. That happens as a practitioner. You have to allow yourself to have those outs because it's going to happen. There's going to come a time where you recognize you're doing something that probably isn't a good thing to do, but you can't handle that emotion. And you must allow yourself to have those awarenesses. You have to be able to watch yourself do the right thing, do the wrong thing, and learn how to have some equanimity about that. And when we allow ourselves to do this, we can begin to see the patterns of what I do when I'm actively and passively ignoring my feelings. Remember, ignoring is the root is ignorance. All of the dysfunctional habits that we acquire are all patterns that are meant to try to help us ignore that convenient fact that I does not exist. We've just been doing it for so long. We've been doing these patterns for so long. It's very difficult for us to remind ourselves. So let's take a look at something like procrastination. That is accompanied by some really negative emotions. Procrastination doesn't feel good. Procrastination is different from being busy or doing things because it feels bad. I once procrastinated doing my personal morning practice for several months. I tried everything to get back on track, but it was not until I sat and actually felt the negative emotions of the procrastination. It wasn't until I actually allowed myself to really feel it and let the procrastination fall away. I let myself feel into what it was I was distracting myself from. It's not easy to do that, but it's very rewarding. I broke through. I got back to my cushion so fast. So I want to give you this bit of warning. This is the tricky part. I really recommend that you have guidance to work with these kinds of negative patterns. One of the things that can happen is that we can end up using our cushion to distract ourselves from our emotions. So I think it's very interesting that I wasn't able to get onto the cushion because that was a really good protective mechanism for not using my practice to distract myself. I was using other things. And it was also a really big red flag that I had some emotional problem that I needed to deal with. So what happens if we use our cushion to distract ourselves, we begin to train ourselves into doing something called spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing. You may have heard this term. I'm going to read the definition. It's fascinating. Spiritual bypassing is a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Wow. Those are all the roots of our problems in Western culture. And we can use our Buddhist practice to paper it over. This term was coined in the 1980s by a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist named John Wellwood. I don't want you to do that. That's not what the Buddha Path practice is for. We are not wanting to sit on our cushion in order to paper over, bury the deep emotional issues that we may have. And that's one reason why this practice is not for the faint of heart. But I think you've been here with me long enough to know that there's support here. You don't have to do it alone. And that's where this next part is going to become very important, because I'm going to give you 3 strategies here to work with this. All right. So how do we grow in our awareness of our own feelings? We need to do 3 simple things. 3 simple things. I'm going to call them: find your feet, follow your breath, and be gentle and kind to yourself. I think we're going to do it this way. We're going to use F's. We're going to find your feet, follow your breath, forgive yourself. There you go. That'll be easy to remember. Okay, let me say what I mean by all this. Finding your feet, if you literally will right now stop what you're doing and just contact your feet on the floor. I think most of you are in chairs, as I am. It's harder to do this if you're sitting cross-legged on a cushion, but if you're in a chair, you just literally feel your feet on the ground, wiggle your toes, becoming aware of your feet on the ground or on the floor is the easiest way to come fully into your body. So you just do that. Whenever you're feeling like you're not grounded, and we use these terms and we don't know what they mean. What does it mean to be grounded? It means to literally be feeling your body, to be embodying or inhabiting your body. Not somewhere out there, but really feeling your feet. That's a really good thing to do. So that's the way of being in your body. That's the first thing you want to do if you're ever going to deal with your emotions. And if you're going to feel your emotions, even the negative ones, got to feel your feet. Secondly, you want to be in the moment. And how you do that is by following your breath. So how do you get back to the present moment instead of just being off somewhere in a flashback or future tripping, catastrophizing about what may happen in the future? Oh my God, I'm going to be homeless because of all this. You know, we go right there, right? As my husband said today, we visualize ourselves in a cardboard box on the sidewalk. So how do you stay in the present moment is you follow your breath. So you just tune into your breath for a moment, and that will bring you right back here. The breath is happening right here, right now. It comes in, it goes out. So you find your feet and then you follow your breath. And forgive yourself. All you have to do for that one is just be gentle and kind to yourself. Here comes a big emotion. I'm okay because I know that I'm being gentle as possible with myself. I'm being kind to myself. The kind thing to do for myself is to let this wave pass, let it wash over me. If you've ever had to suffer from physical pain, this is the same way we deal with physical pain. Some of us have had babies. The only way you get through that is you have to breathe through those contractions. Maybe some of us can't imagine that. So I will just tell you, pain is something that is impermanent, painful, and suffering is that, right? Painful, empty, and devoid of self. It's something that we can just watch and experience. Now, that is not, I'm not saying that you should sit in pain, okay? If you have a headache, take an aspirin. If you're sick, call the doctor. What I am saying is that pain is just one other form of discomfort. And if we're going to deal with negative emotions, on some level, we need to gently, within our capacity, allow ourselves to gently feel some discomfort. Only what we can handle. Being kind to yourself means only feel what you can handle and then do what you need to do. Have a glass of wine, take an aspirin, call a friend, whatever your method of just dealing with that feeling that's about to become overwhelming. So we want to be gentle with ourselves and work within our own capacity. All right, so, what is pain? I looked up pain today because I was really thinking about what all I wanted to tell you today. And wow, there is a whole thing. They don't even agree on what pain is. There's some lists say there are 4 different kinds of pain. Some say there are 5 different kinds of pain. Some they don't, some say some of the science says it's only in your brain, and some of it said, so there's a lot out there, but we can just talk about suffering as Buddhists, and we know what we're talking about. Any discomfort, anything we don't like, anything we don't want, that's suffering. We can call that pain. It is energy. Here's the thing about pain. It's energy that's not flowing. It's something that's all balled up and blocked. Imagine if, it's something, I visualize it as something that is blocked up and wants to be released. That's how it feels to me. That's how I visualize it. And so the best way to reduce that pain is to slowly release that pressure. And that means not trying to control it. It means relaxing. Again, I bring us back to that meditation practice. It doesn't have to be for hours and hours in a day. 15 minutes in the morning is enough to begin a dialogue with yourself that will help you see when something is amiss, when there's pain. And 15 minutes where we're not trying to control it, we're not trying to change it, we're not trying to distract ourselves. We're just gently sitting with it. We're not trying to get rid of it. We're not acting out on it. We're not suppressing it. We're just being with it. Don't be surprised. I mean, the first time I ever tried sitting meditation, I will never forget this. I was in my 20s. I went to a weekend silent retreat, and oh boy, I have never felt so much pain in my body ever. I'm an old woman now, and I felt more pain when in that time during that weekend than I've ever felt with this old body that I have really used very well. So pain is something that will arise when we focus and our mind and we become aware. It will tend to come up, and so we want to be prepared to be gentle and just to go at our own pace and to have your teacher available. I'm feeling this. Is that okay? You know, we want to have our Sangha and our teacher around to reassure us. Okay, what the bottom line from all this is, this process, if you do your meditation every day, if you find your feet, if you find your breath and come into the present moment, if you are kind and patient and forgiving and gentle with yourself, you will develop a kind of confidence that is rock solid. It's this kind of confidence that you can handle anything that comes your way. And as you become more and more skilled at noticing what's coming without reacting to it, you'll become more and more tuned in. And as you become more and more tuned in, you will know yourself more and more at a deeper and deeper level. This present moment thinking becomes present moment awareness. Just as it says in the Buddha path in our preliminary practice, present moment thinking becomes present moment awareness. This present moment awareness is the kind root master. This present moment awareness is everything. All right. And this is the process of transforming negative thinking into wisdom. If you want equanimity wisdom, if you want discerning wisdom and accomplishing wisdom, all the wisdoms, this is the process to use. So I hope will try this. I hope that you will report back to me. I have another, there's another practice. I think I'm going to maybe save this for next week. There's a practice that Pema Chodron talks about. She calls it compassionate abiding. And it's a very simple practice of how to develop courage when you're working with your emotions. It's kind of like Tonglen for yourself. And I think that might be a good thing to talk about next. But, let me just open it up in case there are any questions. I don't want to leave you hanging with this intense topic if you have a question.
Oh, wow. Okay, just one comment. I was kind of, processing a lot, and it was fascinating to me today. Thank you. I was coming to the session with like really a headache, right? I did not take any medication yet, and it's gone. It's amazing by just listening to you and kind of processing my, own feelings, but also listening to my body. Just to make an observation and a comment. So thank you.
This doesn't surprise me at all, Stefan. The thing that I have found is that bringing awareness, and at first it's just observation and curiosity, just bringing observation and curiosity to any situation. But what we tend to do is we tend to go right into our habit of judging it. It's bad. I have to do this. And we go right unthinkingly, unconsciously, we go right into whatever our typical habit is. And that is, it's going to get the same result that we always have gotten. So thank you. I'm glad for that testimonial. That's great. Really, seriously, shamatha meditation is just an incredible gift. The fact that we have been taught by a master who really knows what we need is incredible. He's not telling us to sit in meditation for hours and hours and hours. He's just telling us, a few minutes a day. If you're really going to get fancy, you can do it at night before you go to bed too. But only if you want to sleep well. So, all right. It's 6 o'clock. It's time to go. And I wanted to let you all know that I am going to be offering a series of teachings on doing the outer preliminary practice. That was a request, and I think I'm going to open up to a number of people. And if you'd like to be involved in something like that, I haven't decided on the times and the dates. I thought I'd see who's interested, and then we can find a time, date, situation that works for everybody. Or if we have to do a couple sessions, it's fine too. And it can either be, I don't know, it can be whatever everybody needs. So the outer preliminary practice, if you haven't done it, is wonderful practice to do. And I hope you'll contact me if you have questions about your sitting meditation. And Deneen, I will answer your email probably in the morning and get your question answered. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, let's dedicate our merit. Namo Buddhaya. To liberate all beings. I'm sorry. Namo Buddhaya. For the true happiness of all beings, I will swiftly become Buddha in this very life. Therefore, just as all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas dedicate, I joyfully dedicate all merit for every being to attain unsurpassable enlightenment. May all my dedications be pure like the wisdom of Manjushri. May all my dedications be fulfilled like the aspirations of Samatha. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ramakel.
Lama.
Thank you, Lama. Thank you.
Wonderful
Thank you,
session.
Lama.
Thank you.
Take care.